FM radio station combines the best of TV8 and CNN. All News 99.5 FM, KBBM.
Steve Carlin says there's a chance of rain in our forecast, and John Walters with winds for the Iowa State Cyclones and winds for some other Iowa teams as well. I'm Steve Oswald, and that's the news now. Stay tuned for CBS News.
Bill Clinton recruits a former military chief to his campaign but faces new questions about the draft. And finance ministers gather in Washington to deal with Europe's currency crisis. This is the CBS Evening News. And this is Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. Two of America's most well-known military figures stepped into the campaign battle today, one on the side of Bill Clinton, the other on the side of the president. All of it as yet another round of questioning erupted over Bill Clinton's draft record. Richard Threlkeld has our report.
Bill Clinton returned from his morning jog around Little Rock to find still another missing piece of his draft history in the newspapers. Today's New York Times printed a memo to show that in 1969, as a college student, Clinton had gotten help from the office of former Senator William Fulbright in his efforts to avoid the draft by joining the Army ROTC program. The story prompted Clinton to break the silence he's been keeping about the draft issue and deny again he'd ever gotten anything but advice.
When I had to make arrangements about the service, I talked to a lot of people, including them. I never asked them for any special treatment. I tried to find out what my options were. And I think that is what they have said all along throughout this, too.
In fact, the whole day was one long skirmish over Clinton's draft record, even featuring some top brass. In a wire service interview, retired General Norman Schwarzkopf, commander of Desert Storm, said it would be hard for somebody with no military record like Clinton to send troops into combat. To which retired Admiral William Crowe, former head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who endorsed Clinton today, replied, nonsense.
We have had, of course, some very successful wartime presidents in this century, Woodrow Wilson, Franklin Roosevelt. I think General Schwarzkopf's overdone it somewhat.
But campaigning in Ohio today, Vice President Quayle said it's not Clinton's lack of military service that's at issue, but what Quayle said is Clinton's lack of candor in explaining it.
Bill Clinton can run, he can dodge, but he can't hide the truth from the American people. Sooner or later, Bill Clinton is going to have to come clean with the American people on how he avoided military service.
The Republicans think the draft issue is likely to be the best issue they're going to get, and the Democrats seem resigned to talking about it when they must, ignoring it when they can, and sticking to what they think is an even better issue, jobs, jobs, jobs. Bob.
Thank you, Dick. President Bush stayed at Camp David today, where the White House says he talked politics with his main strategist, James Baker. And now that his name is on the ballot in all 50 states, several hundred Ross Perot supporters rallied in Austin, Texas today. But Perot himself didn't show up, nor did he do anything to clear up the mystery over whether he plans to re-enter the presidential campaign. The top finance ministers of the leading industrial countries met this weekend in Washington. They are trying to come up with some way to stabilize the turmoil in world money markets, a crisis that, unless it is resolved, could strike yet another blow at the U.S. economy by making it harder for other nations to buy U.S. exports. We begin our coverage of that story with Jim Stewart in Washington.
Even before the limousine started queuing up here today for a crisis powwow among financial leaders of the world's richest nations, the German finance minister made it clear his country wasn't in a compromising mood.
Will you bow to pressure from the other members of the G7 to lower interest rates?
After a 7.5-hour meeting, the ministers issued a joint statement reporting no substantial progress, but promising steps to achieve world financial stability. Earlier today, German Chancellor Helmut Kohl was heckled as pressure grows to take some steam out of the German Deutschmark, whose high interest rates have made a shambles of the world marketplace. The British pound and Italian lira are in a tailspin, while the dollar, traditionally popular in a crisis, is up. But that's a double-edged sword, experts agree.
A stronger dollar makes our imports cheaper, including imports when we travel to France or other places in Europe, but it makes our exports less competitive in world markets.
Down in the polls and wrestling with his own sluggish economy, President Bush has stayed out of the fray so far, and the American economy has remained remarkably unaffected. Beyond urging calm and playing the host, there appears little the U.S. can propose until the political season is past.
The American election year makes it harder for the United States to influence these global economic developments. It's simply not credible for any president at this point to make commitments about the future of U.S. economic policy. He doesn't know if he'll be in office. He doesn't know what the Congress will look like.
U.S. policy appears straightforward enough. Interest rates must come down if Europe's economy is to continue growing. President Bush is expected to make that point again tomorrow when he has a reception for the finance ministers at the White House. Whether they listen or not, however, is another matter. Jim Stewart, CBS News, Washington.
The crisis in Europe has been caused in part by worries about tomorrow's make-or-break vote in France on the European Unity Treaty. Tom Fenton now with more on that.
When they go to the polls tomorrow, 38 million French voters will decide the future of 350 million Europeans. A no vote would kill the treaty to unite Western Europe politically and economically and give it a common currency. It would also bolster the rising tide of nationalism throughout Europe.
It's an image of backwardness and stupid nationalism for France, which will be very bad on a world basis. So it would be very bad for France, very bad for Europe.
In an effort to convince the French to vote yes, the government mailed a copy of the treaty to each voter, but that only confused them.
The treaty is also on sale in government bookstores. 62 pages of bureaucratic jargon. Nothing in here about the grand design for a united Europe. It's all minute changes to Article 108 and subparagraph 34C. Incomprehensible for the average voter.
In the end, the French will vote for what they think are their own interests. Farmers, angry at cuts in their subsidies, will overwhelmingly vote no, even though the treaty doesn't mention agriculture. The affluent and well-educated are more aware of the risk to their standard of living from chaos in the financial markets. They may now be more reluctant to turn down the plan for European economic union.
You will see on Sunday night that French people have decided to continue to go on with Europe.
The rumor mill is buzzing with reports of private government polls that show a slight edge for the yes votes. Almost everyone fears a no vote would set off another financial crisis. Tom Fenton, CBS News, Paris.
In a lopsided vote at the United Nations today, the Security Council urged the General Assembly to expel what is left of Yugoslavia from membership. Bill McLaughlin now with that report.
The U.S. and its European allies led the charge. The UN seat of what used to be Yugoslavia is held by Serbia and Montenegro, which are blamed for starting and continuing to press the Balkan Civil War. The vote is part of a campaign of political pressure aimed at the Belgrade regime. Earlier this week, the Security Council voted to quadruple the UN peacekeeping force in Bosnia to 6,800 troops. Angered by the deaths of 4 UN soldiers since they were deployed last June, the UN explicitly agreed that from now on their troops could fight back when they or their convoys were attacked. The UN's airlift to Sarajevo was halted 2 weeks ago when unidentified militiamen shot down an Italian Air Force relief flight. Today in Geneva, at UN-sponsored talks, Bosnia's Muslim-dominated government and the Bosnian Serb rebels signed an agreement to permit the resumption of relief flights. That would be welcomed by the Bosnian capital's residents who are running low on food. But the warring sides were no closer to anything resembling peace. There was heavy fighting in and around Sarajevo today, and the Bosnian parliament was engulfed in flames. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, London.
And still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, how green are the candidates, the environmental politics of Campaign 92, and an American dance company brings some beauty to South Africa's children.
Hi. These days you can have a pizza delivered in 30 minutes.
If the driver doesn't get lost.
Right, Mama. But in just 8 minutes, you can take Popoli, Italian bread shell, made with fresh mozzarella and Parmesan cheeses, garlic, and imported olive oil. Then add your favorite toppings and create your own magnificent pizza. Crispy outside, soft inside, for less than any pizzeria.
And you don't have to tip a delivery boy.
Good point, Mama. Remember, only you can top Popoli.
Hello? Sorry, we don't deliver.
Good morning, America! Good morning.
Good morning.
Wake up, you sleepyhead. Good morning to you. And you, and you. Get up, get out of bed.
Every morning all across America, over 50 million people come to life with Delta faucets.
Live, love, laugh, and be happy. Good morning, good morning.
Delta, the way water is brought to life.
I'll get the cereal, honey.
Morning! You'll love this cereal.
Where'd you come from?
A different time when grains were kept whole for the natural hearty taste.
New great grains.
Toasted wheat, oats, and barley, kept whole, full of flavor.
Pecans, dates, raisins.
Enjoy it with the missus.
Thanks.
Mmm, great. Where'd you get this?
Mind if I tell her?
What was great back then is great grains now. A great new cereal from Post.
For the 8th year in a row, thousands of volunteers on both sides of the United States went to the beach today, not to swim and sun, but to work. It is part of National Beach Cleanup Day, and it's tonight's Washington Notebook, Striking the Right Balance on the Environment, an old debate that's, again, a major campaign issue.
If we want to see a cleaner environment in this world, we have to participate actively in cleaning up the environment. You are doing that here today.
The environment has emerged as one of this year's main campaign topics, so the Democrats' main man on the environment went to the beach today to join thousands of volunteers helping with this year's cleanup.
This is Beach Cleanup Day. November 3rd is going to be White House Clean Out Day.
Perhaps on no other issue are the battle lines more clearly drawn, but the debate itself is as old as mankind. How much of our natural resources can we use for legitimate economic reasons without destroying the world around us? A debate the Bush administration calls totally out of balance.
The balance has been lost, and it's time to fight for jobs, families, and communities. It is time to make people more important than owls.
That theme runs through much of the administration argument on environmental issues. The president's opponents say simply, it is the wrong argument.
I think the overwhelming majority of Americans understand that when Bush and Quayle say we have to choose between the environment and the economy, they're posing a false choice.
It has been widely reported that even the administration's top environmental official, William Riley, has clashed privately with the Bush White House on policy. But at a Washington hearing yesterday, he said the administration record was a good one.
We are very proud of what I think is an unprecedented record of environmental achievement in this administration, measured in terms of budget, of enforcement records that we've set, and we will stack it against anybody's in the world.
Whatever the case, there is more at stake this time than who scores the most election year debating points. The 20-year-old Endangered Species Act is up for renewal, so this could be a turning point for the environmental movement. Some activists at today's beach cleanup were saying it will take a superhuman effort to keep laws protecting the environment in place. This fellow was one of them.
We need some leadership who aren't going to make stupid remarks like you have a choice between people or owls.
And as for election year politics, one businessman today said, too many politicians simply miss the point.
We're just tired of the BS that goes around. Naturally, if everybody has a happy environment, more business comes down, we're able to pay our rent, support our families, and eat.
Unfortunately, this year's environmental debate has seldom gone beyond the rhetorical boilerplate, both sides claiming to have the better idea, neither side proposing much that's very new.
You've just poured the milk on your bowl of Kellogg's Crispix when something keeps you from it.
There we go.
Good thing Crispix has a special shape that stands up to milk. So even if you can't get to it right away, Crispix still stays crispy and great tasting.
They're still crispy.
Kellogg's Crispix, the taste that waits for you.
Quality results depend on making the right investments. And at Ford Motor Company, that begins with our employees. We invest over $20 million each month in the continuing education and training of our employees, and they, in turn, teach us new things every day. The bottom line, increased motivation and an obsession with quality.
At Ford, an investment in education is an investment in quality.
Ford Motor Company, quality is job one. It's working.
Everybody needs some money sometime.
Only Western Union can get money to over 16,000 locations in minutes. Nobody else even comes close. Western Union, the fastest way to send money.
Do you get diarrhea too?
Diarrhea sneaks upon you when you least expect it. I take KO Pectate, and it works. KO Pectate stops the diarrhea fast. It really does. I guarantee it.
I'm Charles Carroll. What would you do if everything you have were suddenly blown away? South Florida picks up the pieces this Sunday morning.
Well, Hurricane Bonnie is well out in the Atlantic this evening, apparently posing no threat to land. But for victims of Hurricane Iniki in the Pacific, these are still days of doubt and uncertainty. Bill Lagatuda reports.
Yeah, Mark, we didn't get a chance at all to cover up anything. We just covered up as best we could.
Like so many people who live on Kauai, Richard Rita suffered a double whammy when Iniki struck. He lost his house and his job. Rita worked at one of the island hotels, all of which may be closed for up to a year. While they rebuild, nearly all of their employees will be unemployed.
Well, I'm scared. I'm pretty sure my wife is. She won't show it as much, but yeah, I'm scared because I don't know what's next.
We need America's help, and we need it badly.
Fearful that Kauai's plight would get lost in the shuffle of aid to victims of Hurricane Andrew, Hawaii's senators rushed to get $1.2 billion for their state included in the relief package for Florida. And this week, 5 FEMA offices opened on the island to process loans and unemployment claims.
I've never taken any kind of assistance at all before in my life. This is a first for me.
It's frustrating. All the lines are busy.
Though nothing is easy here, life is becoming a bit more bearable. There's gasoline now, more food in the stores, even some fast food. And oddly enough, some think rebuilding from the hurricane will be just the boost Hawaii's recession economy needed.
I think we were looking at almost no growth in the state for at least another 16 months. And now we're going to definitely be growing.
But don't try to convince Richard Rita there was anything good about this.
Right now, a little depressed, just tired, because I haven't really slept good. When I get a good sleep, I'll know everything's back to normal.
For the homeless and jobless of Kauai, there are many sleepless nights ahead. Bill Lagatuda, CBS News, Kauai.
On that same subject, new figures out this week showed a jump in jobless claims to 400,000, in large part because of auto industry layoffs. In Highland Park, Michigan, they are already counting the cost of Chrysler's decision there to move its headquarters out of town. John Roberts says more.
Down! Sit!
A new generation plays in the shadow of what Highland Park used to be, the very center of America's auto industry. Now it's a scene of inner-city decay, surrounded on all sides by Detroit, a place that is so poor, police double as firefighters, driving 20-year-old trucks that leak water.
When you see this happening, you get very frustrated because you wish there was something you could do about it.
This was once a boom town, but the boom has gone bust. After 67 years as the city's primary business, Chrysler is pulling out, taking with it 50% of the city's tax revenue.
They're taking the roots out of this community to a community that did not even exist 10 years ago, and where that community will prosper, where they want us to just like fall off and die.
Chrysler will move to its new tech center in affluent Auburn Hills, 40 miles to the north. The company says the move is one of efficiency and denies charges it promised not to leave Highland Park.
Whatever promise we made, we fulfilled. To say that we made a promise to stay here forever is unrealistic.
Highland Park and the automobile have been synonymous going back almost to the turn of the century. It doesn't look like much now, but this building was at the heart of America's Industrial Revolution. It was right here in Highland Park in 1913 that Henry Ford started mass producing the Model T. But Ford moved out 20 years ago. The bank just closed down. The local hospital will too. Even Sears boarded up a 50-year-old store.
There's no jobs, no money to be made in the city of Highland Park now. So it's taking everything away.
I think this community is at a point now that we can't go much lower.
Local politicians will pressure Chrysler for compensation they say this city is owed.
You're busting people that are already on their rear end. Couldn't you have a little compassion?
Hey! Football, baby!
But compassion and compensation won't carry the next generation, who wonder if they can have any hope in their hometown. John Roberts, CBS News, Highland Park.
The extraordinary new Rockport Pro Walker 7500 is not only amazingly light, it is also very flexible. The Pro Walker 7500 for men and women. Rockport, you should be in our shoes.
If you hold your nose, you can't really taste things because your sense of smell is so important to taste. That's why great aroma is so important to Folgers. Here, smell for yourself. Come on, it's new TV technology. You smell that? They use aroma-roasted mountain-grown beans, then they specially grind them. No wonder people like Folgers better than this other coffee. No contest.
Folgers, aroma so rich, you can taste it. Ah. Doctor.
Is it right for me?
Habitrol. It's a patch.
You know the patch.
Habitrol.
You know, Habitrol.
It's a patch. Habitrol.
Habitrol.
Habitrol Nicotine Transdermal System, available by prescription only.
Thank you, Doctor.
State finals coming up. A lot of pressure to win. I don't eat right, I get irregular, so I don't project a winning attitude, and the boys see that. I tried some natural bulk fiber, but I couldn't take all that grit. Then I discovered Sunrise Smooth Metamucil. No grit in the mix or the taste. Easy to get the extra fiber I need every day to stay regular. You got a winning attitude, you win, if you're lucky.
Metamucil, and you could stay regular for the rest of your life.
Think President Bush and Bill Clinton are talking tough? Wait till you hear the Republican and Democratic Party chairmen go head-to-head on Face the Nation Sunday.
Well, the annual debate over debates is making its usual election year appearance, and that is the subject tonight of Bruce Morton's commentary.
It's time, as happens every 4 years, for the debate. Who wants it? Who's chickening out? This time, the Clinton people began by accepting a proposal from the Presidential Commission on Debates to have 3 of them. The Bush people said no commission, no 3 debates, maybe 2. They also disagree over the format. All the recent debates, beginning with John Kennedy and Richard Nixon in 1960, have featured candidates answering questions from a panel of reporters. That's not a real debate. There's usually no follow-up because each reporter has his own ideas of what to ask. Pretty easy for the candidates. Deliver the 2 minutes you've memorized on the deficit and wait for the subject to change. This time, the commission suggested having just one moderator, as in this debate with journalist Cokie Roberts and the Democratic primary candidates in New Hampshire. Real exchanges could happen that way. The candidates could argue with each other. The voters would learn more. But candidates aren't in the education business. They want to win, and so the Bush camp said no, fearing their man wouldn't look as well in a one-on-one as in the more structured format. It usually is the incumbent who doesn't want to debate, figuring that he's ahead, so why rock the boat? This time the incumbent is behind, but Mr. Bush may avoid debates anyway. Why? So as not to give Bill Clinton a chance to stand shoulder to shoulder with the president and look like his equal. Also, debates tend to freeze voters in place while they wait for the big event to happen. Some Bush advisors don't want that because they think the voters are moving their way. The odds on debates? Maybe 50-50. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
Well, a forecast of rain at Cape Canaveral may force a delay in tomorrow morning's scheduled landing of the Space Shuttle Endeavour. The shuttle mission was extended by 1 day to allow more time for scientific experiment.
How could this happen? They've taken the secret.
Europeans are upset. The Kellogg's Muesli cereal uses their secret recipe.
This we kept in the family.
After all, they've been guarding this delicious secret forever. Ah, but this luscious blend of sweet fruit, crunchy nuts, and crisp whole grains was destined to become Kellogg's Mueslix.
Angelina, you told?
It wasn't me. I swear.
Kellogg's Mueslix, the European secret for great taste.
It's the Domino's Pizza NFL Spectacular. What are these guys into? Piling it on. And if you're into piling it on, get a Domino's medium with unlimited toppings now, just $8.99. And pile it on.
Nobody knows like Domino's.
I live in the country, where everything tastes a little sweeter and a little fresher. Maybe that's what I like best about these Sunsweet pitted prunes. I can taste all that goodness in Sunsweet.
All over America tonight, people who appreciate Italian food at its freshest are coming home to contadina, pasta and sauce. Contadina, the freshest ideas in Italian cooking.
The children of South Africa's black townships know nothing but poverty and violence, but for some, a dance company from New York has raised a curtain on a whole new life. Alan Pizzi has our report.
Now you got stage, you ready?
To teach by exposure, to provide opportunity to expand horizons and nurture natural talent. The Dance Theatre of Harlem has brought its philosophy and artistry to one of South Africa's most underprivileged classes, the children of the black townships of Johannesburg. Places like Alexander are more successful at breeding poverty and violent politics than artistic beauty, but the Harlem troupe hopes to make a small change in that.
Tendu, plie, tendu, plie. They'll do it to the side, the back, and the side. Dancers?
The dancers came here to open a new theater in Johannesburg and to bring the simple message that the arts can liberate minds, and from that can only flow good things.
If you let them know that it's possible, and if you instill the belief in them that they can do it and that they just have to keep their hope up, then I think anything is possible.
A bare handful of the children who came to the clinics and demonstrations had ever seen anything as beautiful as professional ballet in any form. The dancers showed them how it's done, and then how they could do it too. An invitation for the kids to strut their stuff brought forth a burst of raw energy, enthusiasm, and natural talent. It's that talent the Harlem dancers are trying to channel into frontiers the children never knew existed.
See, they can do, anybody can do classical ballet. All you need is the opportunity and the chance to study.
Come on, children!
The end of apartheid was supposed to end the cultural boycott too. The Dance Theatre of Harlem consulted everyone concerned with the boycott before deciding to come.
Because of the change that's happening, I think this time is absolutely perfect. And that is what an artist is going for all the time, that sense of timing.
We kept our focus on why we were here. And the reason we're here is to show how positive input can mold people into something positive, you know.
No one expects a new prima ballerina to emerge from this small effort, but in South Africa's black townships, things of beauty are rare, and the hope is that from such small examples, more will grow. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Johannesburg.
Well, that's the news. Tomorrow on Face the Nation, Democratic National Committee Chairman Ron Brown goes head-to-head with Republican Chairman Rich Bond. I'm Bob Schieffer in New York. Good night.
Experience CBS News.
First up, Buccaneers Vikings. Then, Detroit tries to slap the Super Bowl smile off the Redskins on CBS. I'm a big fan.
This is CBS.
Coming up next on the TV8 News Live at 6, the Red Cross visits flood victims in southern Iowa. We'll go along with them.
An Indiana woman is charged with murder after the body of her 2 children are found in her car in Council Bluffs. And college students at Iowa State University become swingers to help the homeless. We'll explain.
Well, Steve will tell us how long this cool weather will continue. John with big wins for ISU, UNI, and Drake. TV8 News is next.
Why will you pay less for your waterbed at Big Sur? Because you're buying directly from Big Sur's own factory. Just $2.89 buys the king-size Charleston, the Carmel, the Oak Accent, the Ridgewood Blue, the Concord, the Valencia, or the Timber Rose. 7 ways to save on a great night's sleep. Your choice, just $2.89. Factory direct means real value at Big Sur Waterbeds, 3715 Merle Hay Road at Douglas in Des Moines.
See your local Jeep and Eagle dealer.
You're watching today's TV8. And this is News Now. This is TV8 News at 6.
Good afternoon, I'm Sarah Jarvis.
And I'm Steve Oswald. 4 days after the heavy rains flooded south-central Iowa, workers there are adding up the damage.
Now, this is where the damage stands now. Governor Branstad notified President Bush that he is asking for federal money for 9 southern Iowa counties. Disaster Services Chief Ellen Gordon says early estimates of the flood damage is around $10 million in bridges alone. Today, Red Cross volunteers were out lending a helping hand to landowners, trying to help them put their lives back together. TV8's Jeff Greenwood spent the day with one crew in Clark County.
Okay, I think what we'll do is start here and just head down this way.
Yeah. Though it's Saturday, this is no day off for the Red Cross. At the Relief Center in Osceola, the Red Cross is keeping tabs on who hasn't been checked on following this week's floods. So Red Cross volunteers are heading to the last few residents they haven't yet made contact with.
Make contact with the homeowner and to try to get them to show us the damage that's been done, if there has been any, make an assessment ourselves as to whether it's minor, major, or destroyed. We're with the American Red Cross. We're just doing disaster surveying to see if you suffered any damage from the storm at all.
This Red Cross team came to Clark County from Ottumwa. Other teams are here from as far away as Mason City and Charles City to Davenport. They're spending their day off helping others.
It's rewarding to go in and tell these people this is what you can do and this is how we're going to help you.
Though much of Clark County is drying up, many roads are still virtually impassable and many bridges are still out. So the Red Cross is making sure those in remote areas are all right. That phase is almost over. Now the Red Cross is trying to get flood-ravaged residents to come in and apply for emergency aid. Jeff Greenwood, TV8 News in rural Clark County.
Western Iowa authorities are looking into the deaths of 2 children there. The children's mother has been charged with first-degree murder. 29-year-old Kimberly Martin of Granger, Indiana, has been charged with murder in connection with the deaths. Investigators say they found Martin's 2 children inside her car when they stopped her on Interstate 80 just outside of Council Bluffs this morning. Both children, who were aged 8 and 5, were dead. It's believed that they had been shot to death. Autopsies are being performed on the bodies of the 2 children to confirm the cause and the time of death. Investigators say they believe the children died somewhere between Council Bluffs and Elkhart, Indiana.
Investigators in Page County are trying to find out what happened in the death of a 22-month-old baby from Carson, Iowa. Shay Robertson died at a hospital in Shenandoah September 7th. The autopsy says the boy died of an internal infection. Now, the DCI says that type of thing usually doesn't occur naturally and is usually associated with a fall or a blow. So the DCI is treating the case as a homicide until it can be proven otherwise. Page County authorities are still waiting more lab results before any charges are filed.
A Warren County judge is going to decide Monday whether or not the trial of Terry Lass will be held in Indianola or somewhere else. The 29-year-old Lass of rural Norwalk faces first-degree murder charges in the death of her 6-day-old son, Shane. Shane Lass was found in a ditch about 5 miles from the Lass's Norwalk home last February. The day before, Terry Lass had called authorities and said her son was stolen from her car while she was at the post office. The medical examiner determined that Shane died of head injuries. His mother was charged with first-degree murder a week later.
A third of the workers at the John Deere plant in Ottumwa will be out of a job for a couple weeks. The layoffs start next month. The company is blaming poor market conditions for letting the workers go. More than 370 employees will be let go on October 12th. Another 360 will be let go the following week, and another 345 laid off the third week. Then all employees will be called back November 2nd. Now, this is the latest round of layoffs. It follows a 6-week shutdown of the plant in July and August. John Deere's Ottumwa plant makes hay and forage harvesting equipment.
Well, college is the place where you're supposed to do strange things. Things like swallow live goldfish or even cram a dozen people into a phone booth. Or what they're doing at Iowa State University this weekend. Eye on Iowa reporter Dana Carton takes us to Ames.
Here's something you don't see every day. College students swinging right in the middle of campus town. Now, not that there hasn't been swinging going on here before, but this is swinging.
Yep, bunch of swinging college students. So.
And this is some power swinging, not just a day at the park. These college students will have their butts in a swing for 50 hours.
The hindquarters gets pretty sore swinging on this for 2 hours.
Of course, they're not doing this just for the fun of it, as if swinging for 50 hours is fun. This is their annual swing-a-thon, a fundraising effort to collect money for the Ames homeless shelter.
We feel that there's a need to raise this money.
This is the third year for the annual swing-a-thon, and while things are swinging along pretty smoothly, it wasn't always that way, especially the first year.
One of the ladies that was swinging with us, the chain broke off and she broke her arm. That was about the most unusual thing.
They've managed to work that problem out and have even come up with a way to make all this swinging a little easier on the swingers by actually swinging on padded chairs balanced on the swings.
All right.
About the biggest inconvenience the swingers face now is the weather.
It was really cold last night, but it's been pretty fun today.
The fish tank didn't quite freeze over this year. It almost did last year.
Through this swing-a-thon, the homeless shelter makes money, and these college students become big-time swingers, even if it is only swinging. Dana Carton in Ames with an Eye on Iowa.
Well, now Steve Carlin's going to answer that question we have all been wondering about.
Is he going to answer that question?
He is.
All right. Is it going to stay cold?
Well, it did get pretty cold last night, Steve and Sarah. In fact, 30s and 40s across the state of Iowa, but tonight, not going to get quite that cold. Here in central Iowa, we'll see clouds on the increase. It's pretty nice out there right now. We'll see a low in the middle 50s. A little bit of a change in the forecast, and we'll talk about that in just a bit.
All right, Steve. Still to come on tonight's TV8 News, we'll show you how folks are helping their neighbors in Des Moines.